Welcome, Gapsters. Thank you so very much for joining us for this talk today. We have the pleasure of hearing from Laura Vásquez-Rodríguez. Laura is a postdoctoral researcher at the Idiap Research Institute in Martigny, Switzerland. Previously, she did her PhD at the University of Manchester in the UK and worked in the industry for 9 years as a software engineer at Intel Costa Rica. Her main research area is natural language processing, including text simplification and multilinguality in the HR domain. Her favorite hobbies are swimming and yoga. She also happens to be a real good friend of mine, so I'm really happy to see her here. In this talk, Laura will dive into the AI in talent management systems, the existing methods and challenges from a research perspective. Thank you, Laura, for your visit to GAP and this festival. I know we're all eager to hear your insights, so the stage is yours.
Okay. Thank you so much for the really nice introduction. Also, before starting, I have a small homework from the organization. I just want to clarify, I come from an external institute. I have no relationship with GAP, and just to be clear on that. Okay, that's it. So, welcome today. Today, we're going to talk about the applications of AI in human resources. And I will just share a little bit more about me. I did my bachelor and master degree at Tecnológico in Costa Rica. And then after that, Sergio mentioned, I just moved to the industry. And then after 9 years that I was working there, I thought well, it would be really nice to, learn about data science, machine learning, big data. These were the big words until in this time, 2018, 19. And then, well, I thought probably to get the longest path and do a PhD on natural language processing in Manchester. So it was really nice, and I learned a lot on the journey, but probably a bit longest path. And then currently I'm working as a postdoc researcher at Idiap. So a little short introduction about Idiap. It's a research institute. It's a nonprofit research institute founded in 1991 as the Institut de l'Aimoli of Perceptive AI. So it's a team of R&D engineers. They are dedicated to research and innovation, counting 180 employees and 18 principal investigators. We're located in a small town in Martigny. You can see in the photo that it's there in between the mountains is Martigny, and that's the view from the office. So now back to the topic. Let's talk about talent management systems. These are also referred as human resources management, and these are systems that are focused mainly on the entire employee lifecycle. So from attracting to hiring talent to development and retaining employees, and we will focus in recruitment. So these talent management systems are composed from different types of stages, and we could actually get a lot of feedback from each of these stages. But we would like to focus only in recruitment, especially because of the volume of data you will get, lots of applications when you're looking for someone to hire, and also because of the sensitivity of this decision as well, because in many cases this will determine people's careers. So as I put in the first slide, one of the things of talent management systems is that it's full of opportunities and challenges as well. So in the side of opportunities, the first one is the reduction of human biases, because as humans, we are already born with inherent biases. Even if we don't know and we're unconscious about it, we're already biased towards certain things based on the things when we were raised on. But if we do a talent management system, then we will be mainly focused on the skills, and we will forget for those discriminator factors, such as gender, religion, and culture, that usually we could have as human beings. As a second option, we also, it will be possible to boost recruiter productivity. So you can think we have a train company, have Train Italia in Italy, and they want to find a driver for a train. And then suddenly I will get 1,000 invitations and resumes. I need to decide which is the driver that I'm going to hire. So maybe you will check, I don't know, if they have good experience, if they are willing to travel, maybe if they work under pressure, but I need to know at least how to reduce and prioritize all the lists and nail down until that candidate that I'm looking for. So here, at the right, and this right of my screen, you can see like an example of one of the systems that it's. We will talk about this later, but the company that is working with us, they do HR systems for recruiting and many other things. So you have different types of profiles, you know, the compatibility based on the skills. So this kind of things are really useful, not to substitute people in HR, but also mostly focus on how to support them, how to help them to do that final decision. You may be thinking about like, well, yeah, but here you have photos and you have some biases here, but you can also hide those details. You're in control of the things you want to see and you don't want to see when you want to do recruitment. The other interesting point is the reduce the cost to hire, because you could track, for example, if the what is that platform that people it's using to apply to your job. So maybe they're applying for LinkedIn, or they're using Indeed, Glassdoor, I don't know. And that means that the company will pay to each of them some amount of money to actually be on that platform. But if all the candidates come from LinkedIn, so that I could like actually manage this kind of data and save a lot of costs. Also, it's important to think that there are still companies that they will do recruitment by email. So all the data management process of going email by email and checking what's that very good candidate that we're looking for, it's really costly. And finally, the last opportunity is the unemployment reduction, especially for those countries when they have like an employment office and there are a lot of people applying and they would like to go and know what's that job. And that means like I have a lot of profiles. And in many companies also happens that some requisitions will be closed because we don't find the correct candidate. So in general, I think it's a great option to manage our data. And like, even though if at some point then we put AI, but we will talk about that a bit later. On the other side, we have the challenges. So we remove the human bias. Now we introduce a machine bias. And this is really interesting because we depend on the data. So if the data is mainly focused on IT domains, if in the IT domain, let's say there's a gender bias or more men than women, then that means you will see that in the model. And we need to also to find those biases and to see how we'd like to mitigate them. Also, I don't know if it's good or not, but it will come with a profile in standardization. So that means like if we have 10 programmers that knows Python, they will look like 10 programmers that they know Python. And I would like to make a difference between them. So maybe we can also include in these systems their soft skills and see if they're engaged in volunteering activities or community activities as well. So they can do that small difference between all the standardizations that the system will come. Because in the real life, you see CVs are completely different. They have colors, they have templates, but for the machine, it's just words. And then something that it's really important, and the real users of these telemanagement systems are the human resources specialists. And for gaining their trust is also important, because maybe they traditionally will do this task manually, and then they would like to get and to use this system. But if, I don't know, maybe 2 profiles are not correct, then they will start doubting about it. And that also means that when you have these systems, some profiles can be out there, but if they have like enough profiles to do their work, then they will be fine. So that means like precision is a lot more important. And finally, and not least, and I think this is the hardest challenge in this problem, it's the annotations. Because what it's good for, what a machine will consider it's a skill, it's completely different to what a human considers what's a skill. And to solve this task, we need data, we need to train, we would like to use AI. So we can see one example. Here it's a struct of a CV, and that says like, okay, we know natural language processing, we have expertise in text simplification, and then after that, then it was like a software engineer, and we run a small system. The small system will do just like a basic dictionary, and if the keyword is there, we'll find it, otherwise not. And then we will see that language was detected, simplification detected. But what happens about like the experience in the industry? Okay, nothing is highlighted. And then should I like maybe underline 9 years of experience in the industry, or maybe just industry? So you need to be consistent. and you will have multiple annotators and multiple opinions on how do you detect the different skills. And this is going to be, I think, one of the main challenges when we're working with talent management systems. Okay, so why as an institute we are interested about this problem in the human resources domain? And here I would like to introduce a project. We are working on the SEM24 project, which stands for Semantic Engine. And this is an in-Swiss project. So there's a Swiss innovation agency that it's focused mostly on giving funds and grants for motivating collaboration between industry, private institutions, and research partners as well. So something that happens is that in the academia, things sometimes go a bit slow, or maybe we can test them empirically. We do experiment, it works on a laptop, it's great, then we can publish a conference. But then we go to the industry and it has to work. It has to work in production. So sometimes there's a big gap, and there's also there's a big challenge when we have to do this technology transfer from academia to industry. So these kind of projects were created to help a little bit on that. So this is our team. I think we have Samuele and Samuel online. We have first the ARCA24 company. They do as the one, they do software for the human resources domain, as the one I showed in earlier slides. And we are partnered with them with the EHL Hospitality Business School. So they are mostly on the domain of the hospitality, and for them, soft skills are really important. And then we have Idiap as a research institute, in which we would like to know how can we put AI into this problem in order to have all together. We just not only want to detect the hard skills, but also those soft skills as well. And we will talk about this a little bit more. So this project is focused in 4 aspects. We have hard skills, we have soft skills, we would like to know the proficiency and the mitigation of biases. So when we talk for skill extraction, a skill could be something broader. Let's say a skill is something that could be a hard skill. I know Python, I know Java, C++. Could be a knowledge. So knowledge is that theoretical knowledge that you will learn through education. I took a machine learning course. That's my knowledge. But then I apply it in a project at work. Then it becomes a skill. And we will put in this a skills bucket, the occupations as well. So all of these are relevant terms we are focusing in, and most of the time they're kind of straightforward terms that we can find. Then the following goal is on the soft skills, like teamwork or leadership. And I think in this, the main challenge is that the soft skills are kind of verbose. We all have different ways of express our soft skills, and sometimes we don't even tell them explicitly. Sometimes I just said I was a volunteer leader in a STEM project, and it doesn't say explicitly leadership. Then we would like to work on the proficiency assessment as well. So it's not only the proficiency of a researcher, but also could be the proficiency of a skill as well. And finally, the mitigation of bias in recruiting as the ones that we mentioned until now. Okay. So to add a little bit more complexity to this problem, we also have to do a multilingual support. So something that happens, especially, and I will call it like IT domain, engineering, you name it, we assume that English is the main language of recruiting. And in reality, it's not like this. In many domains, or medical domain, or even like in this, our company works into the European market, and they have a different language in each of the countries as well. So that means that it's important that whatever solution you find, it will also work for many different types of languages. And also in different types of domains. So we want IT, hospitality, maybe just business, or even in the medical domain where you have some specific terms. So when we say that we can have like a solution of one solution fits all, it's sometimes problematic because you want all of these things to be all together. So sometimes it's okay to have a general model. Sometimes you will need to tailor between these domains and see what you can get. Okay. So until now, we have seen the different types of opportunities and challenges that we have on the talent management systems. Also a little bit of our project, but then it's also okay. And then where is the AI? So hold on, we need to first check how do we do these things in the real world, and then we talk a little bit more about AI. Okay, so here we have an example. We have 3 types of structs. One of them is for a Scrum Master. So we coach a team of 5 to 10 people. The Scrum Master, improving team performance. The second one was like for a product owner. And third one was like volunteering with a STEP project. So like same as the little example that we did at the beginning, where is the relevant information? How do I know what is a skill, what's not a skill, and try to detect a little bit. So just, I will give 5 seconds so you can read the text and think about the options that we can have here. Okay, so see, if my task is skill detection, so the kind of entities I will find are, for example, we have coaching, we have leadership. Leadership, it could be represented by lead, leadership also leader. If someone is a Scrum Master, it's very likely that it's also someone that knows about agile technologies. Product owner certainly knows how to do, or I hope so, software requirements specification, and someone that has worked in STEM-related projects, say, know a little bit of science, technology, and math. What happens here is that some of them are quite explicit. So you could see coaching, coach, okay, this is similar, but agile technologies is something that it's inferred. It's not explicit here, and you would like the model to also understand this type of skills. And here you start seeing like the subjectivity of the task of trying to automate something that is like a skill detection. Then we could also have a second task, which we would like to match a CV with a job post. It's not only to tell me which is the skill, but also which, if this person that has these three skills match to certain position that I have online. So I found like Scrum Master in Blue Technologies in Latin America, and then IT Product Owner at Intel. So this is very important. And then after that, we can think about how do we solve this problem in real life, okay? So I'll do some a little pause, and I would like to know, do you think this is an easy task? It's not an easy task? You can react. I know, I saw it at the beginning. You know how these icons, maybe you can do like this if you think, yeah, that's easy, or no, I think you need more time. Okay, okay, nice. Okay, no, I see positive people up, most of them, okay. Training machines is hard. Yes, I definitely agree. Yeah, actually, one story here is that when I started, I applied for this position. I have many colleagues that told me, no, it's not a generation task. It's just like doing classification. That's an easy task, but it's not, and especially because of the challenges you get on the data. Maybe after you gather data, you say it's perfect, well-defined. Maybe then the method will be a bit easier. Given the advance of large language models, that we will talk about them. But yes, that's good. That's good sense. Yes, it's not an easy task. So we can talk a little bit about NLP. NLP is natural language processing. It combines computational linguistics, which has more emphasis on linguistics and less on engineering, with the statistical and machine learning models to enable computers to recognize, understand, and also generate text and speech. I will highlight text because this is what we're working on, but in the institute there are many people that are also working on speech, and I think was like one of the first reasons why our institute was funded. So I will mention like a research perspective on the talent management systems, especially because in this race of AI, I think many of the companies are already focused on the large language models, but I think there is a lot of power to go through all the let's say pipeline of solutions, and these are probably just some of them. So we can really start from rule-based, when you just have rules to detect the specific skills that I want. And I will add a category that's called neural methods. That doesn't mean that large language models are not neural or that you cannot put rule-based on that, but I just want to say you can do a lot of methods without getting into the high computing resources. So it's always good to consider, depending on your task, how much precision you need, how much recall you're looking for, to consider that intermediate point between just following rules and something a bit smart, but still not computing like a lot of using a lot of computational power. Yes, and here, well, you can see the large language model. If you're familiar with it, that's like the typical transformer architecture that you will see anywhere. Okay, so we'll talk about the systems one by one. And the first one is a rule-based system. So we're using keywords, we're dictionaries, we're also having the standardization of words. So that means we have a dictionary like this one. We have Python, we have Java, we have C++, and an example indices like data analysis using Python and Java. So we just detected Python and Java is a skill, great. But if there's something that it's not there, that means that like data analysis, then we will miss it. So the problem of these dictionaries is that you have to be really precise, and with some standardization of words, you can do something like, I don't know, maybe you remove the suffix, and maybe data analysis is the same as data analytics, or so on. But you will always like be attached to the rules that you're using and on the dictionary that you have. Then we have the word embeddings, and the word embeddings, you have numerical representations of words. So that means that I have a space, have words, and I will give numbers to each of these words. And if they are semantically close, then in the space, you can also see them together. It's kind of a transition between a rule-based system and a neural method because you're still using rules. You can still use a dictionary, but instead of mapping the exact word, you can also look for words that are nearby. So for example, if I have in a CV like collaboration, and in someone else will say, I don't know, cooperation or projects, then maybe I could say, okay, I'm interested on this, and I will try to think, if someone works in projects and someone has a certain cooperation, then they also could have this skill cooperation. So as you can see, it's also more flexible, which means you could also have matches like artists or together maybe that stand alone and without a context. It cannot be like a skill, but it's, as I said, depending on your needs. If you're just matching a CV and a job description, you just want to have a sense of how similar they are, this is a really good method. Something that I would like to clarify is, okay, I said this is low resource CPUs, but word embeddings is world, and it could be at word level, it can be central level, it can use transformers inside, but I just want to say there's a section of things you can do in between these LLMs and rule-based systems. So what I mentioned about each of these concepts will have a numerical value and put them on the space. You can see them here, for example. And you have like finish and color and paint. They are kind of together because these are similar concepts from this, or at least like from the same domain. So the numerical value will be somehow close. And you can see like paint, it's similar to concrete, but concrete, it's more like a deck and a grass, but I put paint on concrete. So that's how the word embeddings works with respect to their numerical representation and their semantic. And this can be also used for different types of tasks, such as like skill extraction or task, what's the match of CVs and job descriptions, okay? And then we have the LLMs. So that means that an LLM is a large language model. For those that haven't heard about this, it's an AI program that can recognize and generate text. That doesn't mean it's the only thing that they can do. We will see later the applications. And they are trained in huge sets of data. So before we used to have large language models that were just trained, I don't know, in the whole corpus of Wikipedia, in a big corpus of books. And these are models of millions of parameters, which means I have millions of knobs to change and train my model. But now we are having new products in which, you know, ChatGPT, probably you've heard about them. You have the whole internet, and now we have billions of parameters, models with billions of parameters. These LLMs are built using neural networks, and with these neural networks into the domain of deep learning will be called transformers. So these LLMs are really interesting because they can be used for many tasks. One of them is sentiment analysis, and I was thinking of one application that we used to have in our lab. We had one of our collaborators. They were doing analysis of medicaments, of medicines, and they would like to see like the side effects of them. So they will correlate the information in Twitter, and they will do some sentiment analysis. And if, let's say, I have, I don't know, paracetamol, I would like to say all the people that have negative words in Twitter about paracetamol is probably a side effect. So this is like really valuable information for the pharmacist industry, and then we're just like doing beyond sentiment analysis, just not only like if I like a movie or not, and so on. We also have chatbots, probably, well, if you use ChatGPT, or probably in your banks, WhatsApp, you have chat with many of these. You can have summarization. I want to make a text shorter, or simplification, which means to make a text more simple for wider audiences. So what's this LLM? Especially with ChatGPT, I think large language model, it's a black box. You have an input can be text, it can be some abstract representation of your text, can be images, it can be a lot of things. And then from the output, you can get your text, you can get labels. And I wanted to represent this as a black box because from scientific purposes, proprietary models are hard to understand. These models, you really don't know. They can say, well, yeah, I follow like an architecture, instructor like architecture. What about the data? Well, yes, I train in all the internet, but this is not something that you can really reproduce. So if today you have an experiment and it works in LLM today, tomorrow you don't know because it could be another release or they simply don't publish. What's the difference in this? And I think this is like the biggest concern we have, like from the research perspective, from the research community. How do we do science with something that today I will test an input, but tomorrow will be something different? And there are many people doing a lot of efforts to replicate this. It's a race and everyone wants to get in there. And if you heard about, there's a model called Olmo from Allen Institute for AI, and they try to replicate this. They took a lot of data, they try to simulate also the same like as ChatGPT or models of billions of parameters, and they release everything. This is how you do it, this is the data, this is how you replicate the data, this is the model, the architecture, the output, evaluation, absolutely everything. So that gives like kind of a hope of, well, yes, we can also do something and keep doing research, something that is reproducible. So it's always good to have this in mind. These models are great, but it's also good to have your own like open source, something you have the control on. So you don't depend on this type of accesses. Okay, so now we're going to do a systems review. Rule-based is something that's cheap, is fast, is predictable. You know if something is wrong, if it's not on the dictionary, then you understand. And but you have to do an exhaustive list of terms. Then on the side of the neural methods, and here I will just mention word embeddings. They're still cheap and they provide a better generalization. But in general, if you just use them as features, there's no learning. These word embeddings could be trained, but they're not learning about HR. They just know about the semantic meaning of my words. So I'm not still there as a large language model, in which I will have definitely a lot better learning. And with the drawback with I need high performance computing, and it could be less predictable. However, well, this is changing a lot. There are a lot of tools you can use out there and just run these models in your laptop. And it's quite interesting what capabilities and how AI has been like really democratized to everyone. So depends on your task and on the resources you have. You can pick one of any of these in this system review. Okay. So let's see. So until this point, I mentioned ChatGPT a lot of times, but you probably are thinking, why we just don't use ChatGPT and this task is solved? Yeah, and then we don't worry about all these word embeddings and things like this. So we use ChatGPT and we wanted to ask if I have a small sentence like data analysis of manufacturing data using Python and Pandas. What are the hard skills in this phrase? So I have to admit, ChatGPT did quite well. They said, okay, data analysis, well, data analysis is already there, and it gives me like a short description. It involves the ability to process, analyze, interpret large sets of data to derive insights and make informed decisions. Then I have Python. Okay, yeah, I have Python, Pandas, but then it says I have manufacturing domain knowledge. I'm like, okay, so I know production lines, quality control, metrics, supply chain management. So here I'm not really sure. And if I was a HR specialist, I will say I need more evidence. So I think it was good. It's a good detection. And I can definitely use it for my pipeline. Then the second challenge is soft skills. So I have a phrase again, and it's volunteer leader with active participation in STEM. And well, I was surprised that for one sentence, they gave me so many soft skills. I'm like, okay, good. We have leadership, communication, collaboration, initiative, adaptability, and problem solving. So I think, yes, if someone is a volunteer leader and it's active in STEM projects, they could have all of them. But again, I think I would like to have more evidence. But as a first step, yeah, I think it's good. And yes, it makes sense at some point using ChatGPT for that detection. But for this, I wanted to talk about one paper. This paper, it's called Rethinking Skill Extraction in Job Market Domain in Large Language Models. This is going to be published in the workshop NLP for HR next week on the EACL conference. And they did the same exercise that we were doing. So they say, okay, ChatGPT, I'm going to tell you several instructions, will be really specific, and I would like to see, okay, what is the output? And see, well, when you're doing well, when you're not doing well. So they were a lot more specific, and they say, okay, you're given a sentence. Okay, I know it's a sentence from a job advertisement. Okay, it's not a resume. In German. Okay, so the model knows in which language it's coming. Extract all the IT technology skills and competencies that are required for the candidates as a list. And also, to help a little bit more the model to understand the task, I give some examples. So here, there's no training. I'm just really asking. One of them is a suitable candidate will be willing to learn an excellent team player. And then I give a couple of skills. Team player and willing to learn. And I will try this 1, 2, 3, 5 times until the model understands what's happening. There's also an interesting study in the paper in which they also mentioned, well, how many, it's a good amount of examples. And then they did, okay, 1, 2, 3, 5, until 5. There's not really improvement of my F1 score. So there you go, 5 examples for the model. I asked several questions. Okay, what do I get from this? So they did like a manual analysis of 60 random samples with wrong predictions to understand like why ChatGPT is not, and they use ChatGPT and why they're not doing well. So we have 30% of them, 36 for them is because of the misalignment with human annotators. So what the human annotator will think it's a skill, the model will differ, and so on. And also what happens is that sometimes the model detects concepts that are related to career. It's fine, but they are not skills at all. Then 20% of them, it was a wrong extraction. It was like completely unrelated terms. Then we have 14% of them were conjoined skills. So what happens is that sometimes, well, you try to save some space and you try to put your skills all together and then say like develop reporting software and develop statistical software. So these are 2 different skills, but sometimes they're reported as one, and then this is one of the issues. Specifically, I think the models are really good to say explicitly what it's on the text, like the ones that we saw before, data analysis, Python, but they cannot really infer. They can infer, but it's more difficult for them. And then 12% are longer than humans. So sometimes I have one piece of that as the skill, and then they say it's a lot more, especially because there are generative models, and they just tend to be more verbose and a bit uncontrollable. And 8% of them is incorrect annotation. So sometimes humans also will have poor annotation, especially because they don't have an awareness of the context. They read the context and they understood that it's a skill, but then you reread again, and it's not okay. So for this one, I think it's important to mention that having expertise on the field is really important, because in our project, we also have the people from EHL, they know a lot about human resources, and sometimes they come and say, these are the definitions, these are catalogs, this is how you treat a skill. And this is completely disconnected from us, that most of us have either background from computer science or from linguistics. So it's very interesting how we annotate, and we have to, the main lesson is to say we have to be consistent on this. And then finally, like a 10% of other outputs, because the task was like really specific. I want you to return the same sentence, and please tell me where the skill starts and ends. And language models are really sensitive to grammar. So that means that instead of returning the same sentence with my skill highlighted, it will change the sentence because maybe there's a grammatical error. So that's also important when you're chatting with LLMs. Try to be as correct as possible with grammar, because otherwise that will be their main issue. All right. So I would like to close this talk with a final slide about reflections on AI. And the first of them is that there are humans involved. And behind every CV, there's a person, and these systems tend to be quite cold. So we need to find a way of how to add unbiased human touch for them. So we can consider things as soft skills, and also if we know there's a bias, try to work on it in order to make these systems more humans and not just say your Python skill. Also, as I mentioned before, AI is here to help and not to replace, as long as large language models hallucinate, which means that just invent out of the blue something that they've never really seen. We need to have a human on the loop, especially if we have sensitive tasks such as medical applications. We have medical bots that are recommending your patients what to do. You want them to give them good advice. And finally, the regulation compliance, yes, because one thing that happened to this company we're working with Arca, is that according to the law, you cannot tell the AI system to choose for someone to hire. You always have to leave the HR specialist to give the final decision. So yes, you can have a system, it will give you options. I can put filters and decide what do I want to see. But at the end, it's my job to tell who I'm going to recruit or not for a specific position. And then, of course, all the ethical part that we are handling, a manipulation of personal data. So many of these CVs, they have personal data. You cannot just put them on ChatGPT if you don't have the proper authorization of them. And even people can say, yeah, I don't care, you can take my CV. They're like, at least here, the laws are really strict, and you need to hide at least certain entities, like your information, your phone, your address, and things like this. Okay. So that was my talk for today. I hope you got something to take home, and thank you so much. I'll be happy to receive any questions. You can also find my LinkedIn and just like any offline questions as well. I'll be happy to receive. Okay, I have Paul Brown. Well, I don't know. Sergio. Thank you.
Yes.
I'm taking your job. I'm sorry.
Paul, please go ahead.
Hi. First, thank you for your presentation. It was really quite interesting, and really good information about use of AI in this particular solution space. As a follow-up, it was interesting to see the statistics around the inaccuracies of the model, and based on a human expert doing sample evaluations. Have you done any analysis around using that as a feedback loop and introducing directed learning back into the model, and how much human expertise is required to sort of increase the model accuracy?
I think like this project that I show here in particular, I'm going to go back. Yeah. This one, they were doing this with ChatGPT, and they introduced a feedback loop in which if the model didn't give like a correct answer, they will like can you tell me, no, this was not correct. Could you please do it again? And again, like 3 times until they will get like a better improvement. Sometimes they don't, sometimes they will, but yeah, this is definitely something, because these models are kind of built to do conversations, no? So I think this will be really important. And if you can even put like the golden annotations, that's the hard part for us. Like in a project, we didn't start with any golden annotations, and now we're putting people to do, the experts to do this, and it's hard, and it's hard to be consistent. So you think this is the correct way of doing it, and then the model, you think it's this way of doing things, and then this feedback will improve to say, okay, which is, maybe we can give like a common sense ground on both of them. Yeah, but yes, you can take a look at this paper.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would just add, in our own practical experience, you can always have disagreements between the experts as well. So if we have one person evaluate a particular candidate, they might evaluate their level of skill as 6 out of 7, and another expert can evaluate the exact same candidate and say, well, based on my reading, they're 4 out of 7. So even applying the human expertise, there's a certain degree of uncertainty, but it's a really fascinating space.
It's super entertaining.
Thank you.
It's difficult, but we're learning a lot, and I think it's worth to give several rounds. I think that's my main recommendation is give several rounds. We said actually today we had a project meeting and we said, we will do an annotation task all together. The annotators, the technical people, all of us will take one TV and say, okay, what are we looking for? So yeah, it's super interesting. Thanks for your question.
Yes, my pleasure. Thank you again.
Yeah.
I have a question from myself.
In
your own judgment, how far away would you say we are from having sort of reliable systems that will still need to keep people in the loop, but can be like commercialized and be widely available for HR teams to use in sort of a mainstream fashion instead of having to have all this technical expertise on what it's doing underneath?
Without a human in the loop.
No, with a human in the loop, but like have it be integrated in an HR suite that an HR person can use, like a layman person can use.
Okay. I think this is a really good question because it depends on what you want to put on your system. So this company, Arca, they already have a system which has their own methods, maybe not ChatGPT, but they have their own methods, and they have a system that HR specialists, this is the product, they sell all Europe with this. But then we want to put language models there. And what is the output you're getting? So if you are still on the generation, like just receiving the generation as it is, like this one that I asked, can you tell me which are the soft skills? You could get anything. If you give a CV with your IDs and everything, it will come back at some point and the address of someone. So, but if the output of the model is just to say a tag in which like there won't be any harmful information coming out, you are going to say only if this the compatibility level. This is something we can do probably soon. But if you want to add soft skills and if you want to do biases, this is a lot of work, and you want it to work in many domains, many languages. So this project, it has 2 years. It is going to be for 2 years, and it's been 7 months working on it. And I still sometimes feel, okay, I think 2 years it's enough. And there's another project, like also in the INUSIS projects, which took like five years, I think. And they also wanted to do, how do I tell someone this is your job? You should take these online jobs. These are the skills you need. And in 5 years, we'll be meeting with them, and they're like, it's so difficult to just be so precise with the skills and everything. So depending. So if you want something that is not 100% precise, maybe it's good. You can help your HR. Today we have something. But if you want something that it doesn't do any mistake and that doesn't discriminate completely equally, then I think we need some years to get there. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe I could be wrong. What we're doing on the industry is completely different. It would be great. We can talk to someone from Google, or I don't know if Gap is also had human resources, any AI will happen in there. This, actually, I'm going to say something good about this. This is something we don't know, and this workshop that they can now do, like NLP for HR, it's organized by the industry, trying to motivate the industry to let's come and bring your methods. Let me know what you're doing as well, because we have no idea if this is already happening or not. But from the research point of view, it's still far.
All right, thank you. Next up on the list is Sylvia. Please go ahead.
Hi, Laura. Nice to meet you. Really interesting, all the examples you were sharing. I got curious with some of them, especially it caught to my mind how important it is for people to have very good curriculums and CVs, right?
All this.
Yes, but
Yeah.
but in the other hand, I another thought that came to my mind was, well, the paper will withstand whatever you put in it, right? So my question for you will be, considering these are all new tools, and that we should start experimenting with it to learn more about it. Specifically in this case, and from your experience, would you recommend more level of participation from a human side at the end of a process, or even with this, you still recommend that human side at all these steps of a recruiting process, for example, if we were using already a tool like this? What's your perspective around that?
So I think the tool, it's very useful on terms for removing biases. Maybe I see my CVs. Oh, someone from Costa Rica. I want to hire someone from Costa Rica. I get empathized with someone who's from my own country, maybe. So this part is great, and I think it's good. It's fine that you are not there. But when you have to take a decision, you have 10 profiles. How do you decide? Do you decide on this? You have humans. These are people that have careers. Their next job could be their next future on the rest of their lives. So you want to be careful here, and also you don't want to discriminate. So suddenly you are just hiring men because the system says like all IT should be men, for example, as the one that I mentioned, or even like you want to discriminate certain. Well, even like police, for example, here in Switzerland, police are really strict. If you are not from Europe, then why I'm going to give you the job. I need to prove why I cannot give you the job. So do you want someone to be biased or not for someone that is not from the European market, for example? Maybe not. So you want to remove this from the system, and at the end, the skills and what you really need for your position, maybe you can give for a manager or human resources and things like that. Because that's another trick. Often the job descriptions are not what people want. They just have a generic job description. I don't know, when I was working in Intel, the position was called like a product development engineer. And there were like 300 people with product development engineer. And I had a hat of home software engineer, but there's some other people on the tester and some other people doing that analysis, and they will have like the same title. So it's also like just the manager will know what the type of profile they like. And this is like something that is harder to automatize, this human touch.
Yeah. So in summary, there should be always some human interaction depending on each case.
Yes. I don't think the models are, let's say, smart enough to give a fair answer. And of course, like as I said, if you're rating movies and just want to know which ones are good and which ones are bad based on the language, this is quite a predictable task. So let's say, okay, that's fine. You can just put a model, and probably many of the reviews that we see online are doing automatically. But like medical advice, you don't want to be wrong on that.
Yeah, thank you so much.
So that's what I'm trying to say. Okay. I hope it answered your question.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Andres. Go ahead.
Thanks, Sergio, and thanks, Laura, for this talk. Has been very good. If you can, based on all your knowledge or your experience and everything that you have seen or research in this recruitment industry, what do you think are going to be the main changes in the next 5 years in the recruitment process in the industry? Or if you can move forward, what would you see will happen in the next 5 years?
That's a good question. I should tell my team what are going to happen with this after this project. So I think one of them is to be fair and also to remove biases. I think these are like the biggest ones, because now we have, when you remove one bias, you can also introduce some other ones. And I think this will be one of the big ones. You could get like better on the accuracy to detect all of these keywords. You could have soft skills as well. Okay, now I know what are the soft skills, but these final decisions, and to be sure, like I want to be equal to all the people that I'm going to select. I think that's one of them. And what else I can tell? Like 5 years from now, like in 1 month, you have so many new models. I cannot even think what in 5 years like you can take. So it's a difficult question, to be honest.
Thank you. Next up is Ivan. Please, Ivan, go ahead.
Thank you. Laura, it has been a pleasure listening to you today. And I think that out of this group, many of us are technical people and love all these ideas you are sharing with us. We also have people from HR, and they may be asking themselves, "What's the next step? What should I start doing?" So, could you share with us, especially, could you guide our HR team? What do you think should be the immediate next step that they should take to incorporate AI into the recruiting process. And I know you have told us about many things, but if you were to say, at least do this thing, what would that be?
Well, I think if we could, so now we know models learn quite a lot, and the main issue on this area of research is the availability of data because of the sensitivity and everything. So if we could collect the human knowledge, I will do it now. Data, that's what you need today. If we can record interviews, if we can have CVs annotated by them and saying, this is a CV that it's good for this profile, this and that. This will be a lot, because the part of training a model and learning, it's been getting solved more and more, but the other part is not. So how can I, for example, there are some applications in where they try to predict the success of someone when they're doing an interview. Today we have someone, they did an interview, giving this profile, what's the success on this job description. So all of these things are like, we can do text as well, we can do speech as well. So if we have the data, we can do. But without the data, it's just like we can still keep inventing models and not going forward. Then that's where we need the human annotators, and we need the humans to work on this. They are not, maybe, as I said, like they're companies that are working with emails, so maybe they're not doing a lot of tasks that probably they don't want to do, like receive emails, put it on a folder, check one of them. We can just get rid of these tasks that they don't give value to them, and they give their HR knowledge to serve the AI tasks. So I don't know if that was one or multiple, but
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Next up, we have Philippe. Please go ahead with your question.
Hi. Oh, camera is not working. Okay.
Yes.
So thank you very much for this presentation. It's quite interesting and illuminating. And as I was listening to you, I started to get the feeling that language parsing and capturing is just a small part of the problem, right? There's a lot of intricacies and semantic meaning that LLMs are, of course, not being able to capture. So I feel, or I get the sense that the improvements with LLMs are, or the process that LLMs can take care of is no longer the limitation or the limiting factor for having these processes. And I was wondering, yeah, you see like 7 models come out every single day and new publications and so on. But do you feel like, are you expecting some kind of, do you need a new breakthrough in this type of models to keep on moving towards your goal? Or do you think that the progress is required in other parts? For example, on yesterday's talk, we were discussing, for example, the biasing process for word embeddings or something along those lines, not the language manipulation specifically.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So something interesting is, like, they always say innovations, they have their peak and then they go down, and then people get less excited with the different types of innovation. They do well certain tasks, like you can give a text and then you can get a summary, and the summary are quite well. But what about the inference, the reasoning? These are things that humans do and they don't do so well. So I think if we want, for example, to infer soft skills that are not explicitly there, that you have to, after you read all the CV, you say, someone that is good for this and is expert, I've understand this understanding, although they are starting over there, is not there. So I think definitely the power of reasoning, understanding, inferencing information where it's not explicitly there, this is something that I think it's definitely needs to improve in order to give better tools to the HR specialists in this domain.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, we have another question from Maria Fernanda. Please go ahead with yours.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, I have a question. Language is a really complicated thing. It's changing like daily. I mean, it doesn't change so fast, but what are we supposed to do when the language is changing fast and new skills are coming? For example, there's a lot of things going on. There's new skills coming up, and how often do you have to train these models to be prepared for these changes, or how can we mitigate those differences? Those changes.
So I think something that is good is like, at least personally, I like to do, find a model, find a solution, something that works well, and stick to it. Because you will do your experiments for months, and you will see 20 models more going out there. And maybe you can introduce one more, but it's good to be consistent on what are you looking for. Because sometimes we just like, oh, I try another one. But what's the task? What do I want to do? I want to do hard skill extraction. So I will take the model and I take it until it gets into a top and say, okay, I cannot do anything else more with this model. And then we change something else. And even like sometimes in this task, we start with really small models. Maybe they don't learn so much, they're not so good, but it helps us to understand the data and to understand everything that's happening. So I think my first advice is like, think about your problem and try to pick one model. There are a lot of them that are really good. If it's English, then there are a lot of models that are good in English. If you go multilingual, then there are some models that you can also stick to it. But I have to agree, it's overwhelming. Yeah, we're looking for some like all these tools to running LLMs and so on. And you're like, okay, what other skill do I need? Maybe I need to do more deep learning. And I think what you really need to do is to learn, how to adapt. And if you need the skill at that point, then you will develop that skill. Sometimes we have this feeling that you have to be good at everything, but what happens, and I think that's kind of a magic for software engineers. We just have to do whatever we have to do. If today this is the task, we have to go and look for the methods, look and search whatever we're needing. And if tomorrow, I don't know, maybe I have to do it into cloud technologies, I need to learn how to use AWS, how to run GPUs, then I put that hat and I'm doing engineering and trying to understand that because that's what I need for that task. And I think that's something, because we're definitely not robots and we cannot just do everything what the industry is asking us for. So yeah, that's my personal opinion on that.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Andrea, please go ahead.
Hi, Laura. Thank
Hi.
you very much for your talk. Really, really insightful. So I'm that non-technical HR person, and I have a question.
I was so excited to find someone from HR to come to my talk.
There's a lot. There is a lot. So let me tell you what is happening. The background noise while you were talking is we were not necessarily understanding. I'm a psychologist. That's my background. So that being said, if you were going to recommend an ideal team for an HR team to implement some of your proposals, what would you recommend? Because again, with a non-technical background, it would be ideal to have some kind of support. So how would you design that ideal team?
Okay, that's a good question. And just to like, can you tell me maybe 2 slides? Do you think you don't understand like anything at all? Like 2 of them?
No, we did understand. We did understand. I was just making a joke.
Okay.
But sometimes it can be sometimes
okay. Good.
It can go very technical. That's what Ivan was mentioning.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
so I think we need some kind of support in general, HR professionals in general, recruiting professionals anywhere. So I'm just curious, how would you suggest that implementation?
I think you need a bridge. You need a bridge of someone that it's in the middle, in between the technical part and the HR. So you need people from HR, purely HR and non-technical, and you also need these technical guys that they know what to do, but someone also that understands, like, has some empathy and gets like a perspective on both sides, because we have this same experience. So the people from EHL, they just work in hospitality. This is their main business. How to work in hospitals, how to be a manager, want to be good service, all of this, nothing about this. And then we were saying the keywords, LLMs, GPUs, they're like, oh no, I can see your Visual Studio now. And this guy is always like this. And this was the first days, and now it's been 7 months. I'm like, Oh, I'm talking now about GPUs and LLMs. You know, yesterday I tried ChatGPT, and also if you try Hugging Face Chat, it's really cool. It's the same as ChatGPT, but with open models. I also asked ChatGPT about the soft skills, so now they're understanding their language. So I think it's an empathy from the technical team to know you need to learn the words to use on the HR domain, and also from the HR domain how to share your knowledge. Because yeah, today we're also saying they were sharing their own HR knowledge. You know, the soft skills are classified on these frameworks. We can use these categories, and we are like, we have no idea. But we will need this to get this together. So I think personally, like I'm really empathetic on this side because I did like my PhD on text simplification. So it's about teaching a model of how to say things in simple words. It's all about that. So
right.
So it's more, and there are guidelines. Like if you really want to teach people to do this, like there are guidelines, like just use simple English, try to use short sentences, don't use technicalities, you don't have to use jargon to explain what you're doing, because at the end, you want to understand the business, the domain, and then whether you use a language model or word embeddings or whatever, these buzzwords, that doesn't matter, that's the job of the technical side, but you as a HR specialist, you need to tell them, this is what I want, and this is what I'm going to accept. And like, I'm going to also give like an example. I recently hear in a talk on the medical domain, it's like same thing, like the software developers, they do a medical chatbot, it's ready to go with the patients, but if you go to the medical world, they will never use anything without human trials. They need to try it with humans. It's not enough to just try it yourself. So both parts needs to like really understand what they are doing, and I think it has to be this way. Otherwise, they just come with a solution and they tell you, this is what are you going to use? And you're like, no, this is not working for me. So,
okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks. We have one question in the chat, and we're getting close to the end, so please be aware further questions may not be answered. Marisol is asking about the influence of having candidates tailor their CVs or resumes using AI at the same time that recruiters are also using AI to evaluate those AI-generated resumes. So what do you think about the influence there? Is there a negative influence about that feedback loop occurring from AI-generated resumes and AI-evaluated resumes, or what do you think around that?
Yes, that's a problem, and we were talking about this also in a project meeting, and it's like, you know, that's a different problem. We have two different problems. One of them is detect the skills. One other one is detect if the CV is fake. So if this person says they are amazing and they are heroes, okay, now bring me an interview, and then I need to do the interviews to see if the CV is fake. Because how now, of course, I know there are some models there that kind of detect if something is generated by AI, but honestly, I'm not sure and aware how effective they are. So until this technology, like for someone that asked about which technology we need now, so if someone can have a really accurate thing to say this was AI generated, then you can start doubting a little bit about this candidate. But otherwise, you have to take this as a truth, because we're given a CV and I need to read, and what is there is true. And if not, then I have to put more stages in my, as I said, if I can do interviews, if I can evaluate, like there was a project from our institute in which they evaluate if people are complying with, I think it was the STAR principles, if they talk about the situation, the task, the result, during the interview was a good interview. And this was a speech project. So you need to combine. But if you want to solve everything all together, I think it will be probably impossible, because people are using AI, people are using techniques. Let's put the words in blank, and then the machine will read it, but the HR specialist won't see them if you haven't heard about this trick. So, I mean, it's detection of fake CVs. I will put that as a different NLP task into and extraction and matching of CV. That's another task, and it will be a pipeline, of course.
Okay, and I think for our final question, we have Juan, who asks, on this other end of applicants or potential candidates leveraging AI tools, are you aware of any low-hanging fruit or things that prospective candidates could take advantage of, taking into account that there are all these new tools in the market to filter their resumes?
You can go rule-based, I think, is the long-hanging fruit. You have you try to see if you can see in CVs what are those. You can tell ChatGPT, can you tell me a list of rules, and then try to see if you can find how many CVs, and then you see the gaps. But if you want to make it more smart, or even like semantic similarity, you try as well.
Like from the perspective of the applicant, like what can they do to have their CVs like be compatible? Or...
Oh, yes, this is a really good question. Yes, do it machine learning readable, please. This is a main problem that we one of the main problems that we're having, and it's like, and I have somebody here who is suffering so much with this in the company. If you have a CV that looks beautiful, I know Python, and you put a graphics on both to say it like, oh, good big ones are, I know a lot of Python, so on. This is not parsable. It's not working. If you do some certain columns, sometimes it looks well, but when you parse all this information, it's a mess. So the simplest old-fashioned CV, where you just have like headers and bullets, and you end up your bullets with points, it will be beautiful for a language model. So I think from the applicant side, sometimes we focus a lot that it looks really beautiful, but sometimes it's not. So you can just download a PDF parser. If it's parsed correctly, then it's you're going well on the part in which the system where you're going to detect good things in your CV. If it's unparsable, then it's unreadable. And I'm wondering if many people are not accepted to a position because the CV was not parsed. Now most of the recruiting is done online, and it happened to us that we parse a lot of CVs and says, I cannot parse the CV. It's just something wrong with the format, and the libraries will fail. So from the applicant side, I will say that, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Well, this is the end of this Q&A session. Obviously, there is a lot of interest around this subject from many people in the company. So thank you, Laura, for all of the knowledge that you have shared with us today.
Thank you so much. If you want to see the picture, the questions, I can answer some of them, and then just send them by email if you want. Yeah.
I'll make sure that they go your way. We really appreciate your visit. Thank you, Gapsters, for attending this talk. We invite you all to our next talk, which is called Facilitating NLP Tasks with Hugging Faces Transformers and VLLM, which will be given by me, actually, next Tuesday at 10:30 a.m. Also, we want to hear your feedback so we can keep improving our events. Please fill out the form that was sent to the chat. I'm going to have William send it again because it might have gotten lost between the questions. Everyone, have a great day.